Excellent. And today we've got a very special guest. We've got Jonathan Reeves here, who is a Vectorworks maestro. How long have you been using Vectorworks for, Jonathan?
Well, we were just having a little competition, weren't we? I've been using it since I did my final year master's degree at Sheffield University back in 1991, which rapidly dates me and ages me quite a bit, but that's quite a while ago when I think of it. So yeah, in fact, yeah, shocking, isn't it, to think how many years ago?
Brilliant.
Early adopter.
Excellent.
But believe it or not, Ryan, before that, I can honestly say to you, I don't think I'd used a computer apart from computer gaming as a kid, which I was a bit fanatical about. Through my first degree university course, I didn't really use computers. They weren't really commonly available then. Yeah. And in a way, that was what got me started, that master's in architecture and computing. There we go, Minicad.
Amazing. And you also run your own architectural practice up in Loughborough?
Yes, Jonathan Reeves Architects, Architecture Architects, one of those two. I'm not sure, never quite sure which it is. We're a small practice, but yes, we do some architectural projects. I also do a bit of consultancy work, I would say, with many of my clients, a bit like yourself, helping them out with expertise on bigger projects, which is nice actually, because I get to work on really exciting sort of bigger scale projects that as a small practitioner you wouldn't probably get,
Excellent. Great. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend that you go onto YouTube and type in Jonathan Reeves and subscribe to Jonathan's channel, because it's the best resource for Vectorworks out there.
Oh, thank you.
I've been using Jonathan's stuff. I've had many a late evening with Jonathan in my ear, watching his videos, figuring out how to use different aspects of Vectorworks. And as we've been talking here in Business of Architecture, having those kind of CAD systems and trainings in your business it's so imperative. And it's really interesting when we kind of start talking with everybody about what the sort of divergence of how people are using Vectorworks and how many sort of wonderful features there are of the platform that aren't actually being utilized by us in our practices. So we end up kind of developing quite convoluted workflows, if you like, not realizing that Vectorworks can create a whole load of shortcuts. So just have a raise of hands. Is everybody here a Vectorworks user? Who's not? Ben's not a Vector.
Eric, a few in a bit. Eric's a bit.
Eric, you're a straddler. You're on mute.
There we go. By the first of the year, I'm switching over completely. So okay. I have had the subscription all year this year, but I haven't spent the time to.
What are you switching from, Eric?
Revit.
Okay.
Yeah, Revit and SketchUp. Mainly
I might come back and ask you a bit more about that a bit later, but it's interesting. We have a lot of customers who are doing similar things, so Vectorworks is in a good sort of place at the moment, I think, for sure.
Yeah, just committing to year one.
Yeah,
doing it 100%.
That's it. Yeah, it's hard to make the switch. It's easy to keep doing what you've always done and get the similar results, even though possibly that it's not the best or most efficient way of doing things. And I think whatever software you use, it's really important to make the most of. And yeah, absolutely. Vectorworks is what we're going to talk about today. So we'll see how we go.
Excellent. Good. And Ben, you're looking at switching over, or you're a CAD connoisseur?
I am not a CAD connoisseur. I'm just trying to figure out what to do, as I launch a new practice.
Yeah.
Do I go, what platform do I want to use? And I see all kinds of pluses and minuses, and I just figured I'd drop in here and witness and see how it lands.
Fantastic, Ben. I'd love to hear your view at the end of the session, what your thoughts are. I think a lot of people, when they start practices, clearly this is a big decision for them, isn't it? It's a major one, actually. As much as where the office is, it's what are you actually going to do your design, drawing and documentation on, and how you going to do it. But the platform is very important for sure. But I can give a bit of advice on that when we need to.
Cool.
Great stuff. And who's been using Vectorworks for more than a decade? Just show of hands.
Excellent.
Okay. Great.
So
okay.
Good experienced users, definitely.
Well, let's jump into it and start off, Jonathan, with perhaps just outlining some of the inefficiencies and ineffective things that you see lots of architecture practices with their use of Vectorworks, the kind of common mistakes that you see people not, things people not taking advantage of, for example.
Sure, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so as well as my architectural practice, I've always been a very keen sort of architectural teacher and educator, and Vectorworks has been my absolute sort of main program. I've taught other bits of software actually during my time, Atlantis and SketchUp and a few other things. But, Vectorworks has been my absolute passion throughout. So I've been very fortunate over the years, since I've been doing this since 2000 when I set my business up, to, in my view, work with some of the best and nicest, brightest practices all over the world, but mainly UK based perhaps until the last couple of years, with technology allowing me to be a bit more global. So yeah, I've worked with some fantastic practices, including Paul's there. And I guess I'm always in admiration of the architecture and the quality of the architecture that these practices produce, absolutely. But at the same time, I do feel like when you scratch below the surface of how the average architectural practice is run, I'm sure some of you will relate to this, there's inefficiencies in the way their business is developing. And for me, the main focus of the business, from my point of view, is the CAD side, the CAD 3D, the BIM, the working practices of the drawing, the documentation and presentation. Personally, I think that has got to be the most important thing, and because that is what enables you to do great work and make a profit and please your clients and actually also enjoy the job. Let's face it, that's why we came into this profession, to enjoy designing and developing projects and helping our clients. So I do feel that it's really important to be as good as you can be at the CAD side, Rion. So yeah, that didn't really talk about what the issues are, but that's the motivation, I guess. I'll come back and talk about the issues in a second. But would anybody relate to that, would you say? A few nods. Good. Well, so when I get engaged to work with practices, I think these are the sort of headline features that I would say, depending on the size of them. And I work with practices from one person up, lots of one-person man bands actually, up to my biggest is probably about 120, so quite a big practice. But plenty of mid-sized ones, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, those sort of sizes. So I guess you've got to talk about things like CAD standards and templates, which some people see as a bit boring and a bit restrictive. But in my view, if you develop them right and you develop them in a good way, they free you up, they free up time, they save time, and they develop a nice bit of consistency, which is really essential. As soon as you get more than one person doing a set of drawings, you ideally want those drawings to be consistent.
Yeah. And is this something you see in practices where, lots of different people are all drawing in different ways?
Yes, I hear this a lot, and this is one big reason people will come to me to talk about this. They're all able to use CAD software. We're all clever people. Hopefully, as architects, can draw on the computer fine, and we can draw in lots of different ways, with lines, with BIM objects, with 3D objects, all sorts of techniques of drafting. But I would agree with that there are consistency issues in terms of the way drawings are produced, both the way they look potentially, but also what's behind the surface is a bit less visible, right, in terms of what layers and classes people use, what graphical standards they might use for elevations, section lines, north points, those sort of fairly straightforward things, really quite easy to sort, but be surprised about how many practices don't get those basic things as tight as they could, I'd say. Let's be polite.
Let's ask the group here of some of the issues that you or some of the things where you think you're not being as effective or efficient as you could be, either in your own, if you're not using Vectorworks, or if you are using Vectorworks, where do you think some of your time sucks are occurring? Who'd like to just America and Stephen?
So we've come to Vectorworks and like the program immediately for its user friendliness and intuitive qualities, but we have not adopted 3D at all. Sure. So we really are using it, like we always joke, we kind of use it like trace paper, our first floor is layer, our second floor is layer 2, and so on and so forth. So we are really using it as a drafting program, and we know that we haven't even scratched the surface of the efficiencies we could be using. And I think trying to figure out how to take that step is a hard one when you've been drafting in 2D for a couple of decades. It's a big, we do render and we do renderings and 3D modeling in SketchUp, but we have them kind of as these two separate entities, and yes, conceptually they don't intermingle, and the efficiencies are staggering. But we've actually started to export from SketchUp into Vectorworks to capture sections from 3D models and such. So we feel a little bit like like all mixed up and backwards, I think.
Eric, you really hit the nail on the head, as I may say. I hear this almost probably 8 out of 10 times when people talk to me about we might need some training. These are the things that they know. Vectorworks, as you know, is best in class for 2D graphics. I think nobody would argue that it's just produces beautiful drawings. If you're a good artist, you'll love drawing with Vectorworks, with all the line weights and the colors and opacities and graphics and gradients, all these things. And it comes with a great library of 2D stuff. So like 2D wise, it's absolutely unbeatable. And I'm always saying to practices, actually, if you're going to do 2D Vectorworks, do it really well, but you don't really need Adobe Photoshop that often, maybe just the final tickle. And you don't really need Adobe InDesign to present. I really believe that Vectorworks can do the bulk of that work. So it cuts out a lot of other software being integrated. And that's just on the 2D side. So then, we move then on to the 3D side. And of course, anybody not doing 3D in Vectorworks will immediately mention the SketchUp word. SketchUp's widely used and everybody has had an experience of it. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people tolerate it, and it definitely has a great place in the architectural history of 3D. I would say it's played a huge role. But what I do think with SketchUp personally is it can be a bit of a dead end, and I don't mean that in the wrong way. I just mean that you do a set of 2D drawings so that you can then export them to build the 3D model. Okay, you may build the 3D model and then do the drawings later, but you're doing both. You're doing both at the same time and juggling both. Whereas clearly in Vectorworks, it's not a huge step. There is a jump, but if you can learn to create your drawings from your model, okay, and some people call this BIM or building information modeling, but that for many people is a scary terminology as well. So I would call it just designing efficiently, modern BIM. If you can work in that way, then you can develop your drawings from your model in one software. Now, how nice would that be as efficiency? So that's the goal, I'd say, of 8 out of 10 practices I work with. And I have been working like that probably 10 or 15 years, 10 years at least. So yeah, it's absolutely achievable. And I'm a very passionate sort of promoter of this movement, shall we say.
Brilliant. That's a bold claim there, that you could do away with InDesign and Photoshop.
I wouldn't say do away. I would say replace 80% of the time and 20% of the time. If you're writing a book, for example, like I just did, Rion, I'll talk about that later, but you need InDesign. But if you're doing a 5-page or 10-page design report, you can do it all in Vectorworks, 100%.
Wow. Okay, brilliant. Eric, you've got your hand up there. What sorts of inefficiencies have you experienced in your CAD life?
Automation. So I oversee 20 plus large shopping centers. And, you know, I will still have to use CAD 2D stuff on that portion of it. But one of the things that really drew me to it is, and opened my eyes, was how I could automate, you know, a potential Excel sheet and then pull the information into a tenant space, which is like a tenant name, you know, those types of things, and then automatically have that site plan updated if it was if it was a two-way automation between two different things, you know. And then at that point I could even update the Excel sheet automatically, you know, based on something that reads in my email. So those are kind of some big ticket items that I have to work on and learn how to do the automation. But that's a huge time suck for me, is you know, going through that. So automation is key for me. I want to try to automate as much as possible.
Yes, I mean, that is a good point, as well as the design side, which I'm sure we'll talk more about, which is a key motivator for a lot of architects and designers. You know, clearly a lot of, shall we say, fairly boring time is spent doing window and door schedules or area schedules, or maybe quantity schedules to help get the amount of timber in the building, or costings. Vectorworks has always been pretty good for this, in that you have this built in, almost like Excel. It's a spreadsheeting system built into Vectorworks, and it's very programmable and it's very accomplished. And now there is this direct link with Excel. So yeah, so it's exciting times for people who want to sort of automate the more mechanical side of things, definitely. But again, building the 3D model is the key to that, not just doing in 2D, of course.
Right. And I do all my shopping center, the construction documents and stuff in 3D.
Cool.
And it's just the mind's shift going from Revit over to in SketchUp, just understanding where, because it seems like Vectorworks has so many different functions, and you know, just trying to find those, you know, oh, I need to do this, how do I do this in Vectorworks, you know, those types of things. So
yeah, you know what you want to do, it's just finding where to do it and how to do it. That's it. I think a lot of people have that when they transition from one software to another.
Thank you.
Great. Mark, you got your hand up there. What sorts of inefficiencies do you experience?
I have to admit that I've been using Vectorworks for 20 years, and I too am using the 3D capability of it. I did learn it at the beginning, and then decided by using stuff, it was just too slow. SketchUp was far more at the time. It was easy to use, so I just sped ahead that and started importing things, exporting to make it work. Now, if I were to relearn the 3D in Vectorworks, would I still have the same presentation results in 2D with a 3D model, and the same subtlety in the way the line weights can change, the colors and textures, etc., or not?
I would say the honest answer is it will be slightly different, the presentation quality. And I've got some projects in a bit. When appropriate, I'll love to share my screen and show you a couple of projects I've been working on. But in many ways, you know, you'll always get a different quality between pure 2D drafting and any 3D rendering. So I think that's to be said with any software. But it's not to say that, in my view, it's a worse quality. In some ways, I'd say it was a much better quality. You know, you get all your shadows, you get your depth, you get reflections, maybe. There's different styles of rendering. And I've got a really nice little system that I like and I've developed. You know, and the great thing with Vectorworks is I think it's a very flexible software. And what I love about it is you can develop your own styles. And I know many practices that do have very different style to me, but it works for them. So that's really key. Develop your own in-house style, not just for normal 2D graphics, but for the way you present things. And, you know, Vectorworks does allow you to do that. It's not just like a funnel of you've got to present it this way. I like that. Yeah, I think you can get good quality.
How would you recommend that I get back into Vectorworks 3D? What's this?
Well, give me a call in the new year or before. Get some training. I mean, okay, there's lots of videos out there online. There's lots of content, of course, these days. We're swamped with it. So yeah, soak up all the free stuff and get going. But you know, there is nothing quite like a bit of personal training. And you know, I could probably get people from 0 to very enthusiastic about Vectorworks 3D within about 2 hours of training. Okay, and I've heard people say things like, well, we won't be using SketchUp again after that, which is quite a bold claim. So, you know, it's not a lot. And then after that, you can follow up with a bit more to top up. So it doesn't take that long to understand the basic concepts. And then, of course, a bit more practice and time spent to perfect. But it's not as big a jump as people think. It used to be much harder. And I think, Mark, maybe when you tried it a few years ago, the software, the hardware maybe was a bit more awkward, a bit slower. It's pretty slick now. It's pretty slick. So I've probably said this for the last 3 or 4 years. This is the year to move from 2D to 3D. And I'm always saying it, but I really do believe that this year, particularly with the new Mac Pro M1 hardware, for example, and good graphics cards available for everybody, you know, free Twinmotion for all Vectorworks users. Wow, you know, that is incredible, isn't it? We'll talk about Twinmotion more, but free, amazing real-time rendering software for all of you. And clearly some big advances in Vectorworks 2022, things like the new texturing tool, the new push-pull modeling. Yeah, it's a great time. It's very exciting, actually, to make that push if you haven't already.
It's quite interesting.
Things that slows me down. Sorry, Brian. Go on, Mark. All right. One of the things that I find a bit of a bane of my life whenever I'm importing other consultants' drawings, and maybe I just don't know what to do, but I end up with all their classes that I hate. I can't get rid of them, and it just frustrates the hell out of me.
You have to manage that. Yeah, there's different processes when you're working with consultants. You have to manage that. I won't go into the detail now, but it can be easily managed. Lots of strategies for doing it, but it's important to manage it and keep it separate from yours. Otherwise, you just get this clutter and you can't see the wood for the trees, for sure. It's quite easy to do.
Good stuff. Thank you, Mark. Just one more person where do you have your inefficiencies or time sucks? Ellis.
Yeah, well, I think with my CAD library, I would like to be consistent in by and putting new objects into it when I make something or when I use it. And it's very difficult to get a good overview of what is in the CAD library. So I would like to have a small library of the things that are the most common to use for me. And I feel that is, well, always difficult because you're working on a project and then you go, fast to the next project, and then you forget all the stuff that you already made.
Actually, this goes back to Ron's first point about what do I see in practices that I could do better. And this is a huge thing. After your template and your CAD standards, having an effective and efficient set of office libraries is right up there, critical. Think of your library of books with no book. It's like a bookshelf with no books on. You've got to have good books on that shelf that you can pull out. You know exactly which page to look at and grab what you need. So the resource manager in Vectorworks, in my view, is, I've tried lots of different software. I mean, we were talking about MicroStation, weren't we, Rian, earlier? Yeah. I used MicroStation. I was at Field and Clegg for years working in MicroStation, and you were at Rogers. Great software, but I've never seen anything quite as effective as the Vectorworks Resource Manager for managing libraries. Now, this is definitely something that people don't use as well as they could. So if you're one of those users who's sort of not quite sure how amazing it is, I'm going to say to take another look because it's a fantastic area of the software. The key with the Resources Manager, understand how it works and how to use it. But the most important thing, know how to develop your own in-house libraries exactly, and get them there as favorites. So I'll when I do my sharing a screen later, I'll demonstrate and show you a few of my libraries, guys, if you like. And I'll show you how to create some libraries. I'm quite passionate about this. I do retail a few libraries on my website, if I can plug those, Rian.
Absolutely.
I've developed them over the years. They sell like hotcakes, but you know what? They are fantastic. They save a lot of time. And you can load them all up in your resources. And the best thing about them is you can just tweak them and tailor them towards your own requirement. But what they do is demonstrate how to create those libraries. So yeah, you hit another nail on the head. Definitely libraries is very important.
Great.
And can I have another question again?
Sure.
Okay, I'm a Lumion user.
Oh yeah.
And I see all the promotion now that you did already about the other program. But is there a specific reason why I would change my program?
Look, Lumion is a wonderful software, and it's the renderings that you get from Lumion are very, very top notch. You know, really, really admire the rendering quality. I think the main reason is, in my view, is obviously it's quite an expensive investment. And compared to free, it's a big investment. So yeah, Twinmotion is this year free for Vectorworks 2022 users. Now, that is a really compelling reason to upgrade if you haven't already anyway, let alone the other features of 2022. As you know, I'm a Vectorworks reseller in the UK, and I'm always talking to my clients about what the benefits are.
Yeah,
there are a lot of benefits, but that Twinmotion free is a huge one. So Epic Games and Vectorworks have this partnership they've developed, and you know, I think that's excellent. I like to think I played a little role in that occurring. I've been working both sides for a couple of years now, so it's been great, really exciting. So yeah, Twinmotion is very easy to use. Very fast.
If you would get Lumion for free, would you make the same decision?
Personally, I love Twinmotion, and it does everything I could ever need it to do. And I love the ease of use of it and the speed, the interface, super simple, super easy. I played with Lumion. It is nice, the quality of the renders, but the interface a bit more tricky to learn. I think, look, there's nothing wrong with using both. Twinmotion has some benefits, and Lumion probably has some benefits, a bit like Enscape as well, which I also love. And I have a PC that I use Enscape on. And I use that for some projects because that has a few benefits too. So every bit of software has its own advantages and disadvantages, but I would honestly say Twinmotion is right up there. It's an incredible bit of software. So yeah, you should definitely get into it. It's quite fun, and the renderings you can produce are superb.
Okay.
In fact, this render behind me, this is not my real space. As you can see, I'm in the UK, is a rendering from Twinmotion.
Love it. America.
I just wanted to ask, if you're coming from V-Ray for SketchUp, would it be sort of a reasonably sort of sideways step to try the Twinmotion, or would the learning curve still be fairly steep?
No, the learning curve for Twinmotion is light. It's quite easy. Okay, within that ease of use, most people can pick it up and play with it within an hour or two and do something amazing. Okay, then there's the hidden depth. Okay, so to move to those next levels is where either a bit of training required, or my wonderful new book that I've just completed about a week ago, which I'll talk about later and give you a quick preview of. Yep. There is depth there in the software, but the good thing is it's very cleverly designed software in that it's super easy to get a grip of at one level, yeah, and do things. And then to take it to that next level, yes, there is a bit more expertise required, but that can come with time and practice and training. I would say Twinmotion now, there's a new version coming soon. They've already released what they call the 2022 preview, okay? And in that, they have ray tracing, or path tracing, they call it. So in that preview, the quality of the renders is just as good as V-Ray, as good as anything, as good as Lumion. But of course, with quality comes the penalty of speed. Now, the beauty with Twinmotion is you get both. You get the speed when you're working, designing and visualizing and presenting. You click the path tracer button and boom, it starts to render using the ray tracing. And then, you know, depending on the quality settings, you'll get an amazing rendering out. It will take longer, of course, but yeah, you got both really. It's good.
Great. I just wanted to ask the guys who are with Paradise Theatre, is that Dora and Lance? You're with?
Yes.
What are, because Paradise Theatre, then they're not like a kind of traditional architecture firm. They design kind of extraordinary home cinemas and home theatres. What are the sorts of blockages or inefficiencies that you guys experience with some of your CAD delivery on Vectorworks?
There's probably several. One of which being we do a lot of work with manufacturers of different equipment, like audio equipment and stuff like that. And we try to pull that into our 3D libraries. And I'm always so excited to see an SKP file because they import so nicely into Vectorworks.
They do.
But then I turn it into a symbol and we plug it into our theaters and we have 30 plus instances of the symbol and it bogs down our file. And we are only focusing on a single room, but our file becomes extremely slow and weighed down.
You know what? There's a good solution for that. It's level of detail function. There's a couple of ways to do this in Vectorworks. So symbols are amazing in that you have a 2D representation, which is exactly the graphic you want in plan. Then behind that, you can have a 3D model of the thing, whatever it is, projector or light or anything. Okay, and in both the 2D and the 3D symbol, this only came in a couple of years ago. You may not have used this, but you can have 3 levels of detail: low, medium, and high. So if you were kind of, designing, you would want to switch to low level of detail, and then really only turn the high level of detail on for the final renders. And that would really give you a simple 2D and a simple 3D model to work with. Wouldn't be much speed penalty at all. Could even be quite blocky, almost like a proxy, yeah? And then when you go to do your final renders, you just switch on the high level of detail. You can do it through class, but it's a lot more fiddly. So that's a good solution.
Oh, is that built into like the symbol itself, or is that like a Vectorworks preference?
No, it's just when you create the symbol, it might be something you've just not spotted in the latter versions of Vectorworks. I think it came in 2021 or 2020, just a level of detail function for 2D and 3D.
Oh.
I usually, when I make these symbols from these imports, they're usually just the 3D. So I don't typically make a 2D version of the symbol to be plugged in when we cut the sections and viewports and stuff like that.
Yeah, the good thing is if you have the 2D, when you're looking in plan, you only see the 2D, so you're not seeing the 3D model geometry, so that speeds up. And actually what you can even do, you can even put side views in, like 2D side views. So when you cut a section, instead of trying to calculate the hidden line of this complex 3D object, it just shows you the 2D view of what it should look like, which is pre-calculated. A lot of people don't know about this, maybe use it, but it's a cool feature.
Oh, that's nice.
So that actually might be like the biggest part of the problem.
That's really nice.
I'll put you on the list for next year, Lance. Give me a shout.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, Mark, we're going to have an option for more Q&As at the end here. So Mark, we'll come back to your question shortly, but I think this is a nice kind of segue into, we just kind of highlighted here some of the problems that people are experiencing with their inefficiency. So CAD libraries, lots of people not using the 3D capabilities, importing consultant information. This often weighs down your drawings, even in terms of layers and classes or 3D components, as Adora and Lance were just discussing. A lack of well-organized office, libraries, CAD libraries. This is all kind of making our Vectorworks usage slightly, encumbered, if you like. So I think that leads us nicely into, Jonathan, what are some of the best practices for CAD libraries and workflows? Like, how can we be getting the most out of it? And maybe this is we can have a look at some of your
little live demo, I think, coming up in a minute. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I'd say if we've made a list of top 5 ways to improve your Vectorworks, the first one, number 1, would be probably just invest in training, whether that be self-learning training or some coaching. And learning keyboard shortcuts. Okay, one thing that I've done for many years is developed an enhanced workspace. So the first thing I do when I get a fresh copy of Vectorworks is, even before I start to use it, I go and recreate that workspace year after year. And what that has is a bunch of keyboard shortcuts that are logical, easy to learn, and super easy for me to teach. So that is number 1, learn the keyboard shortcuts and learn more. And that's easy because everybody can do that, like playing the piano, practice your chords. The second one would be to develop a template that is saving you time. Now, I'll show you my template. It could always do with more work, of course. I wish I'd had a bit more time to develop it. But it does the job and it saves a lot of time. When I start a project, I can go from 0 to, I could say hero, but 0 to somewhere in a few hours quite rapidly. So that's good. The third one is probably, well, the template involves the standards, I would say. So that's part of that package. The third one is the libraries. Okay, so 2D libraries or 3D libraries, whichever it is. We talked about libraries, and having those accessible, so you know exactly where they are. You can type in a word and it will search for them, and you can find them in a second or two. Imagine that, if you could go and grab a symbol from anywhere very rapidly. So that's easy to achieve. Now, the third biggest one, and in some ways I would say this could almost flip to number one in terms of the ultimate time save, but this is the harder one, is the movement from 2D to 3D and integrated drafting into integrated BIM modeling. And I call it BIM, and I don't mean collaborative BIM with loads of consultants necessarily, can be, but it can be single lonely BIM, just you guys in your office working efficiently from a model to cut sections, cut plans, cut elevations. And we know this, that as soon as you then make a change on the drawing, well, it's not a drawing, you change the model, all of your drawings, you click a button, it's updated. So, you know, those are the things that what people waste time on, is coordination of drawings all the time. We all know it, but we still do it. So that is the single biggest thing, the movement to 3D in a BIM workflow that will ultimately improve your efficiency. But that is probably the biggest task, the biggest challenge out of all of them. And then I think the final one is step up your presentation. And that's where Twinmotion comes in for rendering, virtual reality, panoramics, Twinmotion cloud presenters that you can share with clients. You know, these days, even a small practice can knock the socks off a client and not have to go out of house to get these things done. So, you know, there's 5, I think. I'd probably get another 5 if you wanted. I think that's enough.
Great. Well, would you like to show us some of your templates?
Yeah, let me share. Desperate to do a bit of sharing. So let me share my screen. I've got a couple of projects here, guys. So I'm just going to move you guys over there. When I look over there, I'm just chatting to you. Here we go. Can you see that okay, everybody?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll just start off briefly. I won't go into too much detail because there are a few things I want to talk about. Is a template. So when I go Command N, you really ought to have a blank template. So my blank is called default, and that's just a completely blank file. And I would use that to shuttle data from consultants into, and never import into my design file, because if there is a problem, its problem is it hits my design file. Bring it into a blank file, you know, work with it, see what kind of issues it has, and then you could copy and paste it into your design file, or you would reference. Now, referencing is better because it holds that consultant's data externally from my design file. So much cleaner, it doesn't bring through all the classes, and it doesn't bring through the file size. So nice solution, that one. Then I go down to you see all the other Vectorworks templates. Here's my 2D template, of which this is it. Okay, so
just quickly, just interrupt.
Yeah, sure.
Who always cuts and pastes their information in? Who references stuff? The few of you, there you go. I didn't know that. I've you know, and that's, you know, something from like a microstation discipline was really good with referencing, but I'm guilty of that cut and paste.
I think the only time I copy and paste is when I need to get at the information and physically edit it. If I'm not physically editing, if I can edit in the other file, I'll reference and bring it in.
Right.
Okay, so here's my template. So look, for me, the template doesn't consist of a blank file with a few layers or classes in. It consists of quite a bit, actually. So I'll just kind of run through. You can see, if I go to layers, sheets to begin with, I've already got a bunch of preset sheets. Okay, so these are all pre-titled drawings for the kind of projects that I do, which are generally one-off houses and small planning applications. So I can pretty much anticipate I'll have a location plan, a block plan, a site plan, maybe existing plans, some elevations, proposed plans, and so on. And these are 10 drawings ready to rock and roll. So that's why I said within a couple of hours, I feel like I can knock out almost a set of drawings, you know, because I've already got the sheets ready, sat there. I have a few unusual paper sizes as well that I rarely use, but if I do need them, they're there just for when I need them. And eventually I might delete some of these if not needed. So that's the first thing, just have a bunch of sheets. If you can anticipate your projects, your deliverables for a client, why not have a sheet sat there ready with a title block on it, ready to rock and roll. Secondly, design layers. We can do the same thing with the design layers. So I've just got some pre-named design layers in here. You can see I've got proposed layers in a group. I've got existing layers and survey layers and so on as well. Now, mostly these will change, and I may well change the name. And if they're going to be 3D, I'll definitely edit characteristics about these. So you can only go so far with this. But I do like the fact I don't have to immediately start creating layer by layer every time for a project. I've got some standards that I can follow. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. The final element of my layers is what I call graphical resources. Okay, so I like to have these very accessible. They're not library kit as such. I'll talk about libraries in a minute, but these are just sort of my graphic standards that I might try and use to be consistent within a template. There are a few little gadgets in there, you know, a few of the kind of furniture gadgets that come with Vectorworks. And I like to just show these because sometimes people are amazed and don't even know that there's a sort of parametric tables and things like that you can play around with. So these are good for designing both in 2D and 3D, okay, because they're rapid and they're quick. They're not highly detailed like BIM objects or bespoke things, but like if I just want a shower for a client, I could just go in and type in, I want a 1500 shower. So that, you know, these little gadgets really more than anything, but they save time. So I have a kind of couple of layers in there. I'll give you, and I have one for dims and notes and one a bit for detailing as well.
Well, we'll come to some questions in just a second.
Yeah, let's do questions in a moment. Okay, so that's the second element of your templates is some standard layers. Some of them with just nothing on them and may not get used, but some graphical standards loaded in. But keep it slim. You don't want a 100 megabyte file before you get started on a project. No, up to 10 megabytes is fine. And then I guess the final element is a meaningful set of classes. And this is probably the bit that I would say nearly every practice does slightly differently. There is no one size fits all, but it's a set of classes that you are comfortable with, that make sense to you. And it's making sure that they're at least semi-organized as a starting point. May not end up like that, but at least it starts like that. And of course, like everybody, I will go and copy and paste things in from other projects and bring it in, and that will bring through classes from other projects. So sometimes you just got to do a bit of tidying up on this, but that's it really. It's just sheets, layers, resources, and classes. So yeah, do you guys have a similar thing? Yeah, excellent.
Not yet.
No, that's the one to develop. It takes a bit of thought, but sometimes you can develop it from some typical projects. But it's a good thing. Okay, shall I talk about libraries then? Shall I move on to libraries, or do you have any questions specifically about templates, guys?
So we had a few questions there. We had Mark, Merica, and then Eric.
Go for it.
Mark, you had your hand up first. Or has your question been answered?
No, it hasn't been answered.
Or have we forgotten it?
A question to do with hardware, and if I take advantage of all the bells and whistles, the 3D capability Vectorworks has, and maybe Twinmotion, the kind of minimum requirement in terms of
Mac or PC. Which way would you lean? Mac or PC?
I'm a Mac user.
A Mac user. You know what? It's a really easy answer now. A couple of months ago, it was a very difficult answer. It's a MacBook M1 Pro with a big screen or two big screens plugged in and a keyboard plugged in. So you use it like a desktop, but you can bring it to the office like I have, can pop home, can travel with it. It's 10 core, so it's very, very potent and fast. You can see my cores whirring away up here, my 10 cores. In fact, if I bring up this one, activity monitor, see my cores here, look, barely scratching a surface. So yeah, that's good. Here's the GPU, here's the graphics processing here, not doing a lot. So yeah, they're very powerful. The only tricky decision there to make is, do you want to stretch to the max chip and 32 gig of RAM? I didn't, I went for the base model and I'm been very, very pleased with it so far. So I think
I have to invest in that to achieve what I want to achieve. Could I do it with what I got at the moment, or something maybe upgraded?
Let's not go into detailed specification questions, Mark. Drop me an email and I'll happily advise you offline because it's a bit more involved. But, you know, what I would say, my advice would be, guys, don't let hardware hold you back, because your time as architects, your training and your experience is so much more valuable than the hardware. Oh, you know, the time wasted by having 5-year-old hardware can be significant. You have to invest both in training, software, but you have to invest in the hardware as well. And I think if you do that as a small business or even bigger one, you know that you're working as efficiently as you can. But yeah, I think having bad hardware will potentially put you off any form of 3D workflow, which is clearly a shame, I'd say. Right. So yeah, you've got to go for it sometimes. And I say with the new MacBooks coming out now, it's a good time actually, particularly with the new M1 chips. Yeah.
Great. America. Thank you, Mark.
My questions may be too specific for right now, but I was just a bit fascinated with what you did with that dining room table.
Oh, yeah.
What is that, and how, like?
Yeah, I mean, it's very straightforward. These are objects. So if you go to this palette here, the furniture and fixtures palette, you will have a whole bunch of little objects, including a table and chairs object. And these are parametric. So what this means is you can control the settings, the size, and fiddle around to your heart's content. So they're super good just for quick design. And you get a really nice, simple 3D, not very detailed, but they're very fast. Can you see? So that's the beauty of those. So yeah, there's loads of good stuff on here, actually. Let me show you a little file.
Is that something that you made, or it's something that you download from somewhere?
No, this is totally Vectorworks based. It's just you may not have explored this little palette here yet. So go and have a look, explore the furniture palette.
You have it, America.
Okay.
You have it there. You've had it. You've always had it. You know, look, I am constantly surprised when I'm teaching people. I can show them tiny little things that give them a lot of joy, and actually, it's just because they didn't know that this was there. So yeah, that's quite common. Let me show you another one though. Similar note. So here's the resource manager. Okay, so Command R, it's one of my favorite keyboard shortcuts of all time. I might park this on my other screen, but let's leave it here for you today. So what you need to do, guys, if you haven't done, as well as exploring the pretty comprehensive libraries that Vectorworks ships with, you know, it really does ship with some amazing libraries of kit. But the problem with this kit, it isn't always what you need, is it? It's kind of a lot of stuff there. Yeah, it's nice, but I don't need it. So what you need to do is have a look through and see if there's anything good in there. But you need to go to favorites. Okay, so here's my favorite files. Okay, so what I've done is I've created some Vectorworks files and I've added these as favorites. So I've got a couple of the Vectorworks ones in there. I don't mind this one. That's one that I go back to again and again. It's nice and simple. But more importantly, I've got my libraries, my JRA libraries here. So when I need something, you know, if I'm doing a project and I need a tree or something or some people, I can go right here, jump in. And these are the libraries that I sell on my website, as I say, that I've kind of put together for you guys. And the good thing is, you know, when you drag in something, so let's see if I can just do this on the design layer, just get back to a design layer there. You know, as soon as you drag something in, it will bring through the correct class with it. So that will have brought through this class symbols vehicles. So I can immediately manage it properly and it's all nice. It's got a nice, shall we say, fill around it. Can you see? Sort of traced around. So I don't need to mask or do any funny business. It's all there for me. So yes, these libraries are pretty comprehensive. Not sure whether the latest Teslas are in there quite yet. We'll have to get those in there. But things like libraries of your basic packs, people, trees, and cars. Who doesn't need those, yeah? We need those all the time. And then we get on to things like hatches. Some big libraries of hatches, stone hatches, all sorts of things. And of course, all you do here, you know, just drag and drop those in, which is lovely. Here's a little tip for you guys. If you don't know this one, this wonderful tool, the attribute mapping tool, allows you to scale. Do you know this one? And rotate your hatches. So if you don't know that one, it's a bit of a crowd pleaser. This is a very nice tool for hatching and working with all sorts of different styles of hatch. Those are my construction hatch libraries. I've got a couple of those. Then I've got, okay, I'll probably talk about the walls library in a minute. So where I was going with this was this kitchen stuff library. So let me open it. Let me open that file. So right click and open. Okay, just let it open. And you can see, here we go. I've got a load of pre-made kitchens that I can use for different projects. And these look great in 2D, but of course they're generated from the 3D models. So with a bit of adaptation, I can bring these kitchens in and fiddle around and modify them as required. So yeah, these are great. These are all available for you guys. These are all available in Hillet, base units, wall units, utility cabinets, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's a fun palette to explore, this one. Definitely the furnishings and furniture.
Amazing.
Okay. Yeah.
Amazing. Love it.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
it's nice. It's very quick to be able to sort of just show the client what the kitchen could look like, not designing it in detail for them, just to show them the layout and how the space works. That's enough, I'd say. But the beauty is that all of these are objects, can you see? So what that means is that if I edit the style of this one, let me say I change that to surface mounted doors. Let's go for glass, just so you can see. I click OK, and then every door, every unit that was that style in the model will change, which is really nice. So that's using style within a plugin object, and that's powerful. You change the style and it changes everywhere.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. Love it. I've only put that file together fairly recently, Rion, and I've already found it saved me like hours and hours. So a little bit of investment saves a lot of time.
Awesome.
The other thing, go on.
Eric had a question.
Okay, so mine's related more to the design layers. So when you had the graphical resources up,
yeah.
So are you using those graphical resources like the table for an easy access to be able to copy them into your design model, or are you mainly using your resource library to bring in the models like you're showing now?
I do a bit of both, yeah. If it's quicker, I'll just pop in here, I'll go in, and if I know what I'm looking for, I'll just drag and drop it straight in, fine. If I need a bit more, I'm not quite sure, I'll do this. I'll open the file up and I'll browse through and I'll go over and say, yeah, actually this kitchen could work. I'll copy it and then off I go to my project and I'll paste it in, you know, and there it is. And now I can start working with it and adapting it. So this is a good system for when you've got like loads of stuff coming in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The other system's quite nice when you've just got the odd one-off object as well.
The second part to that is, so I'm in the process of doing, in Revit, I have my standard sheets set up with my standard details and all this other stuff, so that it's always there in my template. And I'm starting to transfer those over, you know, it's a wall type detail, right? So it's the same thing. And I'm putting that into certain design layers. And then do I keep that as in my design template or design layer in my template so that it's always there? Is that the best place to put that? Okay.
No, don't put too much in the template, because as I said before, I've been to a few practices where their template was 100 megabytes and they're like, why are all our projects so big? Why have we run out of disk storage space? Why is it all so slow to do a Dropbox? You know, their file starts off 100 meg. Keep it below 10, yeah? So what you need then, guys, is a good set of libraries for these. So here is my walls library, okay? So I go into my walls library, here they are. And if I really want to get a good peek at them, as I say, my alternative is I could drag and drop them to replace. Let's show you the two ways. So I don't know, here's another little project I was going to show you, a bit more sort of construction, but let's say I decide I'd like a different wall type. I can literally just drag and drop it onto the wall and replace that wall if I wanted. I don't really want to do that, but let's just go for it anyway. See what happens. Didn't really look a lot different, did it? But so that's one way to do it. But the other way to do it is right click and open that file. Okay. And as I say, I'm a big fan of doing this because these libraries have taken some time to create, but look how useful they are with all the different types of walls. And I'm always adding to these when I do a new project if I need a different type of object or wall. So I created these for walls, slabs, and roofs. I'm going to say that I adapted them from Vectorworks libraries, but you can see they're nice and simple. They've got A for architect and cast stone or brick or panel or whatever. So what's really nice about that, guys, is look, if I right click and edit this clay brick class, okay, here's the 2D graphics that are nice and consistent for my drawings. But for me, I can easily click into the texture. And let's say that I now want to swap this brick for a different type of brick, which of course I will. What I now do is I'll go to my JRA texture packs. I've got a load of texture packs here as well. And in there are 120 different types of materials and loads of bricks. This is just one pack. I've got 3 of these, but I can basically just change the brick, swap it out, watch all those. Look, can you see how quick that was? Because they're all classed up properly. So having done that hard work once, I now never need to worry about it again. And I can very easily change the look of my model. So it's a really, really worthwhile exercise. So yeah, having a look, if you're going to use the wall tool, I would say developing a library of wall types is number one resource that you can do. It's a good one. I've got the same for slabs. Here's my slabs and here's my roofs. Now, of course, you can save yourself some time by going to my website and snapping them up for Christmas. But the good thing is you can then develop them yourself.
It'll be the ideal Christmas stocking filler, I think.
Christmas present from Santa. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So
yeah,
we're fast coming up to the top of the hour here. And we've got a couple of questions from America and then Paul. And then once Jonathan answers those, then Jonathan, would you let us know how we can get in touch with you, where we can purchase these libraries, and a little bit about your book?
Of course, love to. How long have we got, Rian?
Well, I said we'd stop at the end of the hour. I'm happy if you're okay to go on for another 10 minutes or so, Jonathan. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. Let's do 10 more minutes. I just want to show you one more project, if I may, while I've got on screen. So this is a typical workflow I would engage for, say, a one-off house. So what I've done here is I've created my three-dimensional model. You could call it a 3D model or a BIM model. And you can see it's very, very zippy, very responsive. And part of the reason for that is because it is just the model, okay, without too much other stuff in. But there is a fair bit of detail in there, as you can see. And then what I do, guys, is I take this model and I do this, should we say, around my Vectorworks origin, ungeographically referenced, so just around my 0, 0 point. And then what I do, I will reference that into this file. So here is the building landed in the site. So keep your site on and your site models and your building models separate if you can. It's a bit like consultants' information separated. But again, it's still pretty zippy. And the beauty of this is I've got two sets of drawings. Look, this drawing will create all of my lovely looking, should we say, building drawings for planning, my elevations, yeah. So Mark, these are the kind of quality of the drawings that I'm getting from Vectorworks with just standard sort of rendering. You know, they look quite nice and 2D sort of graphical. That's why I'm saying I don't worry too much about line weights and things. I could, but I've got shadow, I've got depth and all sorts going on in there. But I also get quite nice little renders out of the box as well. And then when I need to, I go to the site file. And in the site file, this is where I start to do things like, you know, cut sections, sort of site sections. Does that make sense? So through with the context of the site. And that's a good workflow, I think. You keep the site and the building separate. So I just wanted to show you that one. Okay, so that's a good little tip. Just separate the files, but don't separate too much. I'm not really a fan of like every file being separate and referenced together. That just slows you down too much. Right. I like to have all my model in one file so I can get at everything when I'm designing. So that's a good one.
Right.
Okay.
Paul, then America.
Thanks, Ryan. I just want to say thank you. We've got a dash, but we use 3D as you know really well. I advocate switching and investing in that. we need some help with our templates, and we just keep getting really busy and not getting around to it. We book out time and then we end up doing something else. So I think, Jonathan, we'll get in touch and book you in, so we're committed to getting this done. And it'd be great if you could help us with our templates, standards and library, because it's going to really help.
Definitely, Paul. I look forward to carrying on that conversation whenever you're ready, Christmas, New Year, but absolutely.
So we're going to head out, and thank you, Ryan, for organising it, and to Nicole as well. So we'll see you all later. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, Paul.
I'm coming to the real world now, because I'm coming to an end. No, bye-bye, Paul. So just coming...
America had one question.
Yeah, go for it.
I guess I was just wondering about those wall libraries that you were just showing. Are they in fact sort of like comprehensive building assemblies, so that if you were to, like, do they have all of the elements so that you could actually zoom in and a detail drawing at, you know, say like a 1:2 scale or something of that sort? Like, are they actually are all the materials there, I guess, is what I'm asking.
All the components there for every material, and the right thickness and the right specification. I would call it 1 to 50 level, or maybe 1 to 25 level, maybe not 1 to 2. They don't have cavity ties and damp proof courses and stuff like that. But yeah, the components are there. And each component can be separately classed with different materials and graphics. The other beauty of Vectorworks is you can turn off that detail. Okay, with a single button click, I'm not going to show you which one today, you can turn off the detail. So you design in full detail. And then when you go, you know, do your concept planning drawings, you just turn the detail off, but you know confidently you're there in terms of the construction. And when you're ready, you can turn it back on again.
So if you were to change, like you said, like do that quick shift where you sort of said you were going to go from a brick facade to, say, metal cladding.
Yeah.
All of those corners resolve themselves instantaneously, and everything either lengthens or shortens to meet at the right place. Is that right?
Look, it doesn't know about construction. It doesn't know about detailing. Vectorworks, no CAD software does. Revit doesn't. None of it knows to detail. But the component, if you put a door or wall in, of course, it will drop into that opening, and you know, you'll have those different materials. So yeah, it's very rapid. But what it does give you is detailed drawings if you want the detail. But also you can black it out or grey it out if you don't want it. So it's very nice level of detail on the walls. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay.
So having those BIM libraries has been really, really helpful to me when I do projects. And as I say, I keep developing those as I do new designs.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan. I suppose the last piece here is to, how do we get in contact with you? What sorts of trainings do you offer? And tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, love to. So let me share my screen again, just briefly. Let's talk about this. So first way, of course, we've got my website. So I've got a couple of websites. So this is my UK sort of Vectorworks salesy oriented site, but there's plenty of information about my training here. I've got a good sale on at the moment, as you can see. That's one of my projects from a few years ago. But yeah, I do all this kind of different types of training. So check this out. And of course, you can, you know, watch a few of my videos on YouTube and so on. And just reach out to me with the email here, info@jonathanreeves-cad.co.uk. So that's that one. Now, this is more the Vectorworks side. If you're more interested in the rendering side and the Twinmotion side, then flip over to my real-time-rendering.com site. This is a fun site to explore, and this will tell you a lot about Twinmotion if you're not sort of clued up on that. And it's a very enjoyable site to look at. But this is probably the bit I'm most excited about, Rion, is my book. So if you click on the link here, you can have a quick little look at my book. I think there's a bunch of different sort of pages. It's 322 pages, quite a big book. There's 20 chapters. But what's really good about it is there's also 9 case studies by inspirational artists and firms who all tell you what they've done and show you what they've done with Twinmotion. So yeah, I'm really proud of this. It was probably a year in the making, on and off. So big project, you can imagine. But if you look at some of the quality of some of the work in there, it was absolutely superb. In fact, let me just go on here. Here it is. So I'll just pop into full screen. Can you see that okay, guys?
Yeah.
So this is what Twinmotion can do. These kind of renderings are relatively easy to do from Twinmotion. I'm just flicking through a few of the pages to give you a bit of an idea. But yeah, we tried to make the book really nice to look at and beautifully laid out. So super excited about that. And as I say, we've got all these kind of featured artists and featured firms as well in there. There's different scales of work. There's master planning and small stuff, and there's big stuff as well. But yeah, all of that is actually Vectorworks really. And then the next level, Twinmotion is the icing on the cake, and the Vectorworks is the cake itself. Making the good cake is the key part, I would say. Make Brilliant. A good cake, but then enjoy icing it up with Twinmotion.
And Twinmotion comes free with Vectorworks 2022. So
yes, absolutely. It's amazing software, and you can get it for free if you're on 2022. So if you're in the UK, give me a shout. If you're not, approach your local Vectorworks resellers or Vectorworks themselves. But yeah, it's well worth it.
Amazing. Jonathan, that was superb. Thank you very, very much for that whirlwind tour of Vectorworks and what's possible, and plenty of food for thought for everybody there. Of just realizing that, you know, so many of us are sitting on this, you know, this kind of asset of Vectorworks and not unlocking it to its fullest potential, because it's like, and I love the idea of, you know, producing your images, your reports inside of Vectorworks. You're not having to use another piece of software rather than jumping around. I think that's ultimate efficiency. So
it really is a wonderful bit of software. I mean, as you can tell, I get quite excited and animated about it, quite passionate about it. I've been using it more than 20 years and I absolutely love using it. It's the best part of my job. I do lots of other things like Urion training and all sorts of other things, Vectorworks and Twinmotion, all these things.
Yeah.
Probably the most fun bit of my job is getting onto a project and designing with Vectorworks in 3D. And sometimes within not a huge amount of time, you know, I step out of my room and my office and I've just really enjoyed what I'm doing. So I would say that's a huge factor in your choice of software. If you don't love the software, have a look around. You know, I love what I do in Vectorworks and I feel really privileged to be able to use it. I mean, it's not perfect. There's always things that could be better, but overall it's fun to use. It's very powerful. And I think there's always more to learn, put it that way. I'm still learning. And you guys, I'm sure there's a lot more you can learn to make it more enjoyable. So Brilliant. I think that's a good note to inspire you, hopefully. Keep going with it.
Excellent. Wonderful stuff. Well, we put all your details in the chat box there. So you've got Jonathan's website, Jonathan's email address, and the link for the book as well. So feel free to reach out for Jonathan if you've got any more specific questions. Highly recommend those of you using Vectorworks that you book in some training, because if you think about how much an hour or two or a week's worth of training is going to save you over a year worth of production, it's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. And this is the place where most of you are spending still a huge amount of time. And if not you, your team is spending a huge amount of their time. So being able to draw like monsters is absolutely imperative.
And have a way more fun, Rion. That's exactly. You can't put a price on enjoyment of your job, but if you can do it in 2/3 of the time, then you're onto a winner, aren't you? Definitely.
Great stuff. Well, thank you again, Jonathan. Thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm going to tinker around with Vectorworks later on this evening. Yeah,
have fun, play over Christmas. And
I'm downloading some of your libraries, that's for sure.
Oh, great. Love to hear from you guys, and it's been lovely to meet you all, and I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and New Year.
Thank you too. Hey, is the info at Jonathan Reeves, is that the best email to reach you at?
Either of those. The Vectorworks one's a great one, and the real-time rendering if it's more Twinmotion orientated.
Okay.
Take care, guys.
Definitely do. Thank you, sir.
Lovely to see you all.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Rian. Thanks for hosting.